Hey y'all, how you doing? In this video, Jen and I are going to reveal our mystery books for January, and the theme is New Year, New Author. So we each picked a book of an author we have not read before for this month. We also decided we're gonna change the way we word our mystery book picks because we feel like it might be confusing. What we mean when we say mystery is it's a mystery to everybody what book we are gonna be reading. I'm the only person that knows what book is in this. And Jen is the only one that knows what book is in her book sleeve. So we mean mystery, as in it's a mystery to y'all. But we don't want that to get confused with mystery, the genre, because we do read a lot of thriller mystery books. So we are gonna change the way we label these books, and we're gonna call them our secret picks instead, just so there's no confusion, because it's a mystery to you guys, but it's not necessarily a mystery or thriller genre book. So these are going to be our secret book picks from now on. In the January TBR video, I picked an author that I had not read before that writes a lot of fantasy, is probably more known for their fantasy, but has also written a little bit of sci-fi. So here is my pick. Assassin's Apprentice by Robin Hobb. And as someone who loves fantasy, I am so surprised. I have never read Robin Hobb before. She's pretty well known. I've heard a lot of people talk about her. I've heard a couple of different channels mention her. I know Brian Lee Durfee, who has a channel on here, has mentioned, reviewed a lot of her books, and he loves her writing. So I'm really excited to start reading this. There's lots of cozy fireplaces around this library, so I'm gonna go find a spot to sit down and start reading.
All right, guys, it's time. I'm here to unveil what book I have in my secret pouch. And this month's theme is an author we have not read before. And this one, if you have seen our January TBR, you know that I picked an author I've been wanting to read for a while, and a couple of interesting tidbits. This person has been compared to Frida McFadden. There is a theory that it's actually Frida and this pseudonym, this name are the same person. But I'm pretty sure she interviewed them for like a, not a podcast, but like some kind of live feed for something. I have to still research that because it's going to be something I am thinking about as I read this. Is this really Frida? The other interesting thing about this author, and well, not book, because I had to just choose one, and there's a bunch from this author that people keep saying to read, so I didn't know which one, so I just ended up choosing one. But the psychological thriller fan group on Facebook have been just going on and on and on about this author. And it is a he, supposedly, if it's not Frida. And he is also in that group. And one of the reasons why they love him is he constantly is commenting, and he has a huge sense of humor, playing with things. If anyone complains about anything or calls him out on anything in his books, he's in there being very, dry humor, making comments, and it's hilarious. And I do have some screenshots that I was going to share with some of that because I keep talking about it, but I will share with you guys some of the things I've seen from that group. But anyway, this is who I'm talking about. So John Mars is the author's name. And the one I chose, because he has several, is Keep It in the Family. We shall see. Is it going to be like Frida? Is it going to be riveting and twisty and everything people are promising it to be? I hope so, but we shall see. I thought I would read the back just so you guys have a sense of what this one is about, and I feel like it's a good description on the back that makes you want to read it. So in this thrilling novel from best-selling author John Mars, a young couple's house hides terrible secrets, and not all of them are confined to the past. Mia and Finn are busy turning a derelict house into their dream home when Mia unexpectedly falls pregnant. But just when they think the house is ready, Mia discovers a shocking message scored into a skirting board. I don't know what a skirting board is, but it says, "I will save them from the attic," in all caps. Following the clue up into the eaves, I do know what an eave is. The couple makes a gruesome discovery. Their home was once a real-life murder house with the evidence still concealed within the four walls. In the wake of their traumatic discovery, the baby arrives and Mia can't shake her fixation with the monstrous crimes that happen right above them. Tormented by the terrible things she saw, she is desperate to dig into the past to find answers. Secrecy shrouds the mystery of the attic, but when shards of a dark truth start to emerge, Mia realizes the danger is terrifyingly present. She's prepared to do anything to protect her family, but will the murderous figures from the past stop her from discovering their secret? So that's what it is. Let's see what twisty secrets are going to come out of this. Wanted to do an update before I go to work because before I went to bed last night, I read a few chapters. They're very short chapters, so it makes you feel like you're like going through the book really fast, which I like. I love when psychological thrillers do that because I'm not a fan of long chapters. And I'm laughing because the reason why I want to do this video, that last chapter I read was just kind of a little on the crazy side. I see why people are talking about him if all his books are going to be doing things like this. And I also see why they compare him to Frida, because what I read last night and like the creep factor and like kind of the like that factor, like the, I want to say wow factor, but it's like more in the creep vein, very much happened in Housemaid. I remember when I read Housemaid, I had the very same reaction where what I'm reading, I just kind of had to stop and like, what did I just read? So far in this book, you have 4 perspectives. It is Mia and Finn are the married couple. Finn's parents, Debbie and Dave, you see from their perspective. It's like you keep rotating through each of their perspectives. And you're getting like little bits of the family dynamic and kind of like secrets from each one and what they're not telling the other or how they're perceiving each other. And Mia and her mother-in-law, Debbie, have that classic don't really get along and competition. And then you get this other perspective. And I think because it starts off with, I want to say a child, I don't know how old, they're in the house. And it's 39 years prior to Mia and Finn. And they're in the house that Mia and Finn end up buying and moving into and renovating. And the child, and you don't have a name, you don't know who this is so far. I don't know if it's a he or she. I'm assuming it's a he based on how they're writing it. But he is like, he says he lures people in, and I think they're killing people in this house. You don't really get completely the whole story, just what they're seeing, and they're like creeping around seeing what the guardians, parents, whoever they're with are doing with whoever he's luring in. You don't get a lot of information. So I hope that's not too confusing. So then I think it's the same person 39 years later after Finn and Mia move into the house, because they don't say who the perspective is from. You're getting another perspective. I think it's the same person. And they are, it's just creepy. And the last thing that just happened, I'm assuming it's a he is watching Mia, and he's having just these thoughts in terms of just being creepy. And then something he does, and I don't want to say what it is, and I'm just like, what is happening? I've never read that in a book. So yeah, it's it's definitely different. It's definitely kind of intriguing because I don't know where this is going to go. Now, if it gets too graphic or too down the path of violence, I'm not a fan of that, so we'll see. Because Housemaid started to border that with Frida. Like some of the stuff that you're reading, I was just like, ugh. Like it's just stuff you don't come across in everyday life. At least I don't. This book is interesting so far, and we'll see where it goes. I'm sure I'm going to be doing more updates if it keeps going down this road. So stay tuned.
Okay, so I have read the very first little section of this book. Now, this is kind of like when you see a movie and in the beginning words come across the screen, kind of like, I guess, in Star Wars, and Jen's gonna be so happy that I made this reference, but in Star Wars, how the words form on the screen and they say, in a galaxy far, far away, and then they have like all the history. I don't know what all that is because I don't actually watch Star Wars. I haven't actually watched all the Star Wars movies. I've seen like one maybe, but just probably not be happy about that. But but that's what this reminds me of, and I'm kind of having a hard time understanding exactly what it's getting at. I get the gist that basically there's kings that now rule the land, and they are named after their virtues. So the first king, his name was Taker. That's just what they called him. So I'm assuming he takes things, like he probably took the land that he's now the king of. But I kind of am having a hard time absorbing exactly everything this is supposed to tell you. Okay, I'm just gonna read on and see how it goes. Okay, guys. I have read the first 14 pages of this book, and I am having a hard time grasping everything that's going on. I don't know if it's the writing. I think it's just me. I honestly, I'm enjoying what I'm learning of the story, and I want to read it, but I don't know if it's just me. Like, maybe I need to switch genres. I've been reading a lot of fantasy lately, and I don't know. I'm thinking maybe I need something else. Maybe like a horror or a thriller, or maybe I need to switch genres. I don't know. I don't want to switch my secret book, but I don't know. I'm having a hard time getting through this, and it's just not working for me right now. So what do you think? Are you guys okay if I maybe switch my book? I don't know. I mean, I am in a library, right? Like, what more perfect place to go find another book? Let's go browse the shelves. I'm gonna look and see. Okay guys, I am back in my reserve study room, and I picked out a book, and I hope you guys don't mind, but I'm gonna switch my book. I'm just not feeling Assassin's Apprentice right now. I'm definitely gonna read it and come back to it. This isn't like a hard DNF of that book or anything against Robin Hobb or this Farseer trilogy or anything like that. I need to pick up a book that I can just get into and fly through and get this reading done, because it is getting towards the end of the month and I want to get this book read and filmed and get this video out for y'all. So I'm going to change books. And the book that I decided to pick up is called Night Film by Marisha Pessl, I think is how you say that. I'm so sorry if I'm ruining that name. Anyways, one of the booktubers that I follow, her name is Jordaline, and she reads lots of horror. She recommended this book in one of her recent videos that I watched. So when I saw it, I thought, you know what, I'm gonna pick it up and look at it. And in this book, it's kind of thick. It feels kind of thick, like a lot of pages. I don't know how many pages it is, but the book is actually really pretty. It is 587 pages, which is a lot. Ugh, I don't know if I should pick another book. But it is a lot of pages. But when I was flipping through it, there are pictures on the inside. If you guys take anything away from the Empire of the Vampire review that I've done, is I loved going through the book, and there's not a lot of pictures, but when you see a picture, it just adds to the book. So when I saw there were pictures of things in this book, I just thought, okay, I want to try to read this. If you don't know what this book is about, it is about a famous film producer who has a daughter that supposedly commits suicide. And there is a journalist that has been kind of fascinated with this guy, and he has had interactions with him in the past, not pleasant. I think he got sued by this film producer for slander. When this film producer's daughter commits suicide, he starts getting interested in it and kind of investigating it on his own. So that's what this book is about. And like when they talk about something in the book, like here's an example of a picture. So it's an email. So I'm assuming at some point in this book, they talk about the email and then they show you the email. So this and this right here is a web page. So I'm assuming they're gonna talk about someone going to this website and then they show you the website. I don't know, it looks kind of freaky. That website page looks kind of weird, kind of scary. So I don't know, it's kind of giving me good vibes. So I think I'm gonna sit down and read some of this, and hopefully it reads very quickly so that I can get this book done and get this video out, because we try to do our videos, our secret read videos, in the month that we're actually reading the book. So we're gonna try this one.
All right, I am about 100 pages in, and I needed to talk about something because it's bothering me. And when people talk about wanting triggers in books, I don't know if I necessarily really understood per se. And I don't even know if I would have thought I had like a trigger before. But some of the content, and obviously if you don't want to know more details of this book and you want to read it and be surprised, then I would suggest moving along. But something that's bothering me with this book, when you know there were murders happening, and I got like, it did talk about, I think it mentioned briefly that children were part of the murders. But now you're finding out that children are basically the target, and you don't know why yet. I don't know if there's going to be some kind of horrible justification as to why the person is killing children, but it's just bothering me a little bit. I'm not big on that as a subject matter. So it is something I'm struggling with a little bit, because I didn't realize that that was what was going to be happening. And I know I read thrillers all the time, there's murders all the time, and I don't feel like it necessarily was bothering me, but there's something about it when it's being children targeted, and it's not even just that they're the ones being murdered. There are details within this book on how, I'm not saying it's being graphic or anything. It's very methodical, and also it's just the way they are describing what happens after they're murdered. And again, it's not graphic. I'm not saying it's saying anything like violence and graphic or body parts or anything like that. It's hard to describe what I'm trying to say, but it's just not enjoying that part right now. It's hard to say you like a book when it's about murdering children. So that's what's going on. I'm about 100 pages in, so I'll give another update as to what's going on soon. I'm not going to DNF it. I still want to go forward and push through that part. So yeah, I'll give you another update hopefully soon.
So the beginning of the book is just these web pages that show news articles, and it's just kind of giving you a history of this film producer's life. The first one is a New York Times article describing the death of his daughter, and apparently she jumped down a vacant elevator shaft in a warehouse building, and that's how she killed herself. So it's a little weird. I mean, it's not your typical, I'm gonna off myself, so I'm gonna jump down an abandoned warehouse building elevator shaft. Kind of creepy. Then you are going through these news articles online about, I think, Stanislas Cordova. I think that's how you say his name. You're just going through, he's the film director, and you're just kind of going through his life, and you're learning about him by reading these news articles, where he grew up. There's a picture of him as a little boy, and this picture kind of cracked me up because they have, like, he's in the background all by himself. All these boys are playing whatever sport they're playing. It looks like soccer on roller skates. But he's just in the back, like, looking all mad and just excluded.
Okay, I can definitely see why people have compared him to, or think he's Frida McFadden, because you're definitely getting twists. There's more things that you're finding out. It's still like an uneasy type. I feel very uneasy for some of the things that we're finding out. And I have a theory as to who I think is involved of the four main characters that we're seeing. I have a feeling that, I don't know, it's either going to be, it is who I think it is, or you are going to get twisted and it's something you don't, not even, it's a twist that you're not even thinking of, kind of like a la Frida. And I have a feeling that's probably what it's going to be, because so many people have been saying how he is similar to Frida. So, yeah, so we're going to see what happens. So something I wanted to point out in this book, and it keeps going all over the place, which I'm having a little bit of a hard time following. So you get many different perspectives, but it also cuts in and does things like this, where you see a article from a newspaper that is relevant, and it is kind of cool that you're seeing, something besides just reading some of the perspectives. It's an additional perspective, I guess. But that's how this book is set up, where it's kind of jumping all over the place. So if you don't like that, this book might not be for you. But it also jumps back and forth through time. So it'll go back like 36 years ago, and then 19 years ago, and then you're in present day. So it's kind of all over the place. So I just read like a huge chunk, but something big just happened. And I think I was right. I don't know. There's a lot of book left, and I'm not sure. Like, it doesn't feel like it's ended. So I feel like something else is going to happen. but I kind of feel it's leaning towards I was right. But there's obviously a lot more to go, so something else is gonna happen.
A few moments later.
All right, something big just happened, and it's weird because there's so much more pages. Like, I literally only got through 5 more pages from the last time I recorded, but something big happened, so I don't know what that means.
A few moments later.
I literally just got through like maybe 10 more pages, and my jaw was like, twist. Was not what I originally was thinking. It was a twist. And there's still a lot more pages, so I can't keep recording every 2 seconds. I think I'm just gonna plow through, but the twists are coming. This might be Frida. It just might be.
Hey guys, it is the next day, and last night I got to page 150, and I am starting to read I guess it's a news article. It's about the house that this horror film producer purchased. It used to be a Rockefeller vacation property, and he purchased it in upstate New York. So this property is located back in the hills. You have to, it's very private, lots of woods, and you have to drive up a dirt road to get to the property. But I'm loving the book so far. I'm loving the vibe. The characters in this book are very lovable. You have a grumpy journalist, and he has had his career ruined by this Cordova guy. He is divorced. He has a young daughter that he gets every other weekend, so he only sees her about 4 days a month, and he's always worked independently, and he's kind of been forced into co-working with these 2 younger kids. Well, I say kids, they're adults. There's a 25-year-old male and a 19-year-old woman, and they have been working together. And the 19-year-old female, her name's Nora, and she reminds me a little bit of Molly the Maid, which is a character that I love from the Maid series by Nita Prose. And she just in like kind of her way of thinking, she reminds me of Molly the Maid. She had a grandmother that she talks about. She inherited this bird from her grandmother that she brings around with her. And she's just she's a really endearing character. She has had a rough life, but her attitude and her look on life is commendable. And I just am enjoying this character. The 25-year-old male character that he's teamed up with has had a troubled past with drugs, and he's just very handsome. He's a ladies' man, but he's trying to help this journalist figure out what happened to Ashley Cordova because he actually knew Ashley, and he also doesn't believe it was a suicide. So that's where we're at with this book, and I'm pretty far in. There's no spoilers there. You learn all of this stuff pretty early in the book. So far, I'm really loving the vibe of this book. I do wish I might have chosen a shorter book just so I could get this vlog done. I'm really stressed about trying to get this out before the end of January. This might come out more beginning of February. We'll have to wait and see, but writing is really good. I have actually been impressed with the writing.
Wow. So I finished. So much happened. So much. I just felt like it just kept going. And there were so many twists at the end. I mean, I know I said this, but I honestly can see why people think this is Frida. There's just moments of like, same kind of reaction I had from The Housemaid. Moments of just like, what? And there's a lot. So I'm tired because I've been reading a lot. And I am just going to think about everything and do a final thought video. But this book was crazy. It makes me really want to read his other books and see if I think this is the norm though. From what all the reviews I've been seeing, pretty sure this is what to expect from John Mars. And yes, Frida fans, I think you would enjoy his books. I need one that isn't about, again, spoiler, I was about to say it, but move along if you don't want some information. But if you don't want to read about children being murdered, then maybe not try with this one. I want to read another one of his and see that would bring. I want to see what another book of his would be like if it's not about children being murdered. So, I'll be back with final thoughts.
All right, y'all, I have finished Night Film by Marisha Pessel, and I was able to obtain my own copy. I liked this book so much. I went out and found my own copy from Half Price Books, and I'm so excited to own this book. So I really like this cover. I usually don't like real people on the cover, but I don't know, this one doesn't bother me. The cover is stunning. I really like how they did the holographic title and stuff. This fits the vibe of the book very well. Okay, so I love that. The inside of the book is pretty too. You've got these pages, which I already show you guys, and then of course you know all about the like extras in here. If they talk about a newspaper article, then you see the newspaper article. If they mention like they found a note somewhere, then you see a picture of that note. I love those kind of interactive touches with books, so I'm really learning that I like that. Just like with Empire of the Vampire, how they have the drawings on the inside, I really like that, those little touches in the book. It makes the book feel more complete and unique to me. So what is this book about? It's so hard for me. I've been trying to think about what I want to say about this book, and it's been really hard for me to try to put together what this book is about, because this book is it has so many different facets, different things we could talk about, different topics, different little storylines within this book. So it's really hard to try to summarize this whole book. Overall, the vibes of this book are very dark and gritty. It reminded me a lot of the movie 8mm with Nicolas Cage. As far as vibes go, the storyline of this book is a lot more complicated than the 8mm movie, but I think that's the beauty of books. You can go way more in depth. You can get much more immersed in the story because you are following those characters more deeply. You can be even in their heads or follow their perspective and point of view more deeply. So I just really liked this book. You're following an independent investigative journalist, and he currently isn't really working, but 5 years ago he wrote an article and did some research about a horror film producer named Stanislas Kornikova. And he actually got sued for slander by Mr. Kornikova on that piece that he wrote, and it kind of sent his journalism career in a downward spiral. Well, fast forward 5 years, which you're following in current time now, Kornikova's daughter, Ashley, is dead, and it appears to be a suicide. The investigative journalist is not buying it. He's like, I'm not so sure if this is a suicide. There's a lot of mysterious things going on. And he already has a kind of fascination with this film producer because of their history. And he's very familiar, like he's seen all of the films, even though a lot of the films are underground. So he's still very familiar with the works, and he knows a lot about the family from his research. So he's still kind of like following this family, and he just feels like something's wrong and not right here. Something's not adding up. So he starts investigating Ashley's death and trying to figure out what's going on. And it's just, you go down rabbit hole after rabbit hole after rabbit hole. If you like horror books, you need to read this book. I know this book's a few years old, so maybe this was wildly popular in the year that it came out. Maybe I'm just behind the game on this book, but I don't understand why this book is not more popular and hyped up than it is. This book's got all the spooky horror vibes. It's not very graphic as far as gory and guts and that kind of horror, but it has like paranormal ghost vibes. It has billionaire dark occult vibes. It has dark, gritty New York City underground criminal world vibes. It's very dark, but also interesting. Like, you are just interested in this, and the book is pretty long, but I feel like it's a good length. You don't feel like you're relearning information or it's repeating anything. The story is still moving along, and you're introduced to some crazy characters, and there's even a little bit of a found family aspect in this book, because the independent journalist has to team up with a 25-year-old guy and a 19-year-old girl. It's just each of their circumstances and why he has to work with them is different. So I'm not going to explain all of that. So he's very resistant to working with these kids that are, 20, 25 years younger than him. But they grow on him and they prove to be useful. And as the story unwinds, you learn more about each of these characters, and it's just such a great book. This is highly recommended. I haven't rated it yet on Goodreads, but I really think I'm going to give this book 5 stars. It is one of the best horror books that I've ever read. This book's up there. I would highly recommend it.
All right, time for some final thoughts on my first time with John Mars. Keep It in the Family. He does have a lot of other titles. I know he has a bunch coming out this year and next, and he has 8 listed before this one, and this one came out in 2022. So I know that he has ones from last year, and he has a bunch coming out this year too. I had just picked this one randomly. I didn't really put too much thought into it because I don't like to read a lot of information on a title. I like to be surprised sometimes with psychological thrillers. I get kind of a premise, but I read so many comments on that group on Facebook when they are recommending other authors that are like Frida McFadden. And as I had mentioned, there is some speculation that Frida McFadden is also John Mars. So I did look for and find, he has his own TikTok, his own Instagram, and I had thought there was an interview between Frida and John, and there is. So I'm going to show you guys right now the interview because it's cute, especially watching Frida answer the questions. So here it is.
Which book of yours should we be reading right now?
Word D.
Which song should be played on the radio every time you walk in a room?
Sweet But Psycho by Ava Max.
Frida Kahlo or Frida from ABBA?
Definitely Dancing Queen.
Name a living author you'd like to meet.
Pamela Kelly.
If you were arrested with no explanation, what would your friends assume it was for?
Vehicular manslaughter.
Okay.
I'm not a good driver.
Alternative careers, a housemaid or a prison nurse?
Prison nurse.
What was the last TV show you binge watched?
The Boys on Amazon Prime.
Name a book you wish you'd written.
Gone Girl.
Which film must I love for you and I to be friends?
Back to the Future.
Do you read your reviews?
Sometimes.
What's your next book called? And sum it up in 5 words.
It's The Coworker, out August 29th. Office, vitamins, bullying, murder, turtles.
So unless there is an elaborate ruse, I don't think it's the same, but I see why people are comparing the two, because I don't know if I would say the writing is similar, the writing styles, but the twisting that he does and how one thing seems like one way and then you end up finding out it's something completely different. There's a lot of twisting, like all kinds of things all throughout. And I don't feel it's necessarily unbelievable either. So I liked that part. It wasn't so far-fetched. And there were a couple things that happened towards the end that I definitely wanted to record more, but I felt like I was recording like every 10 pages because the end is just so many twists. I think he even out-Frieda'd Frida. So definitely, if you love twists, John Mars is for you. And the only time I wasn't exactly a fan of this one, and you guys already saw, or if you had skipped ahead because you didn't want to hear about it, I guess skip ahead again. The only thing that I didn't really like is that it was discussing murdering children. And not just one or two, I mean, it was several children. Someone's scraping their window outside. I was like, what the heck is that? That's not what I thought was happening outside. It just sounded weird. I read too many psychological thrillers. There's like something scratching at the window. Anyway, I did end up giving it 4 stars, even though I wasn't a big fan of some of the subject material. And the twisting at the end, I mean, definitely like the last 50-ish pages, it's a wild ride. It's like a roller coaster ride in terms of everything that you're finding out and twisting around. And like, I don't even know what to think anymore. It's like, what is happening? So I enjoyed that part. I really like when thrillers do that, and especially if it's within reason. And I definitely didn't take that long to read this one. It's just like a Frida book. It takes a couple days. I recommend a John Mars book for anyone who enjoys that type of book. So those are my final thoughts on a first-time John Mars. Definitely would go back for more. Now, if the second one I choose also has anything to do with the danger of children, I'm cut off. I'm not doing anymore. But I think that just happened to be this one. At least I hope so. Those are my final thoughts on John Mars. Have you guys read John Mars? Any Frida fans out there? What are your favorite ones? Maybe I should have chose a different one to start with. I didn't really look that hard as to what I should read first by him. So it's very possible. I mean, I made that mistake with Agatha Christie. Maybe I should pause more. I feel like I'm very quick and impatient when choosing some of these things, but I'm just impetuous. It's just how I am with books. Thank you for watching as we chose an author we hadn't read before, and until next time.